Holy cow, guys, it looks like Disney might have just fired back at Universal. Obviously, we know Epic Universe is coming here next year, very soon, but at D23, Disney made some massive announcements. I was not expecting this. I don't think a lot of people were expecting this. And most importantly, out of this entire convention, just the whole showcase, they said one thing that actually has me kind of excited right now, and it is that they are moving dirt. Everything announced at D23 is officially in the works.
We have Imagineers hard at work all around the world, because everything that we're going to share with you tonight is an active development. This means that plans are drawn. This means that dirt is moving. I just want to be clear with all the fans out there. This isn't blue sky. We are going to do all.
This isn't blue sky. This isn't just randomly talking about what could potentially be. These are projects that are on the books. I'm assuming we have some sort of project management taking over each of these projects in general. So either way, let's talk about the announcements that we got, and then let's discuss whether or not this is enough of an answer from Disney against Epic Universe. Now, I do want to start with Epcot. So not a whole lot is coming here. One big thing I want to point out is Disney made announcements for all 4 Walt Disney World parks. I'm not going to talk about the parks over at Disneyland or overseas or their cruise line, anything like that. This is specifically talking about the Orlando parks, because that, I think, is a direct competition for Epic Universe. So I do want to focus only on what they announced here, and I don't want to go into other things. Obviously, there was a lot announced and very exciting stuff. But again, we're only focusing on the Orlando Walt Disney World park right now. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and start with Epcot again. And we didn't get too many crazy announcements over here. Number one, we did get some more kind of official openings for the test track redo or kind of refurb. I guess this is going to be what, version 3 maybe at this point. So we kind of knew that was coming. We saw it go down. This isn't anything crazy in my opinion. So this one isn't that big of an announcement. That's kind of why I'm starting here at Epcot, just because I'm like, this isn't the park that we were looking forward to. We kind of already expected this one to kind of be just mediocre, in all honesty. Obviously, we had like Communicore Hall and everything that already opened up, so I don't think we were really expecting too much. And then as well, we got the Spaceship Earth Lounge, and I'm going to assume that's going to open up right behind Spaceship Earth or whatever it might be. One big thing here that I do want to kind of preface is I feel like Space 220 isn't this like insanely cool thing that everybody wants to go to. I feel like it was at first, and then people went, the reviews came out, and it wasn't really hitting the mark like I think people thought it was going to. It still seems like a really cool opportunity to kind of go out of the park in this kind of like space exhibition thing and then come back to Epcot, but we haven't gone yet. I've seen some reviews. People think it's a cool environment, but not necessarily like the greatest food or the greatest drinks. But from what I've heard, you can actually do like walk-ups, and that's the best way to get there. That's another story for another time. Either way, those are the 2 things that we got for Epcot. Nothing too crazy. The V3 for Test Track, and then the Spaceship Earth Lounge. That's kind of what we got for Epcot. Is that gonna compete with Epic Universe? Maybe not. Now, next up would be kind of the step up from the Epcot announcements, and that's gonna be over at Animal Kingdom. And Animal Kingdom did get announced the Tropical Americas, which we, again, already knew was coming. We found out a little bit more about all of the Encanto stuff going on, and then also with the replacement for Dinosaur turning into Indiana Jones. The concept art does look pretty cool. And again, nothing too crazy. We kind of already knew this stuff, so it's not like this was like groundbreaking or anything like that, but it is cool to see that these things are kind of getting in the works at this point. I feel like everything in here is basically starting construction between 2025 and like 2027, I think is kind of the rough time frame, which then you've got to assume it's going to be a few years, which we'll talk about that at the end of the video. I'm just kind of going over what we see so far and the announcements that were made. But again, Tropical Americas, Animal Kingdom looks really cool. I like the concept art. I think Encanto is starting to really get into the parks right now and giving them their own land. I think is probably a smart idea. And I feel like it is an IP that a lot of people have kind of grasped onto. We just went to Mickey's Not So Scary. Saw a lot of people dressed up as Encanto characters. They got the new Bruno and Mirabel meet and greet, which we did. So I think it is a positive thing to bring to the replacement for Dino Land. Again, nothing really new. Same thing then with the other ride, which is going to be Zootopia. And I believe that is replacing A Bug's Life, if I'm not mistaken. So two kind of announcements again. So Epcot, Animal Kingdom, mediocre announcements, to be completely honest with you. We kind of knew all of this already. The reason why I'm putting Animal Kingdom above Epcot is because Epcot's not really getting a new land or anything rethemed like that. They're just, you got the lounge, and then you got, version 3 of Test Track. So this is like, all right, well, we're kind of getting a new land, even though it's just retheming a land. So not really adding space per se. Again, nothing too crazy here, but it is cool nonetheless that is happening. Now let's bump over to Hollywood Studios, and this is some serious action now. We have the Monsters Inc. land coming to Hollywood Studios. Can we get a round of applause? I love Monsters Inc. It was one of the original animated films from Disney that I really fell in love with. I don't know why, I just really thought the whole movie was hilarious. I watched it all the time as a kid. I love Monsters Inc., always have. And we're finally getting the door ride. That is super cool. And I feel like people have always talked about it. It's like you have these flying doors all over the place. You go in and out, however, they want to utilize that. But we're getting a ride, and it's going to be the first, I believe, suspended roller coaster for Disney parks, I think across the entire world right now. I think we're gonna have the only one on Disney property. So that is super, super cool. From the artwork, it looks like it's gonna be kind of the more tamed down version. You're not getting these big Montu or the Batman style where it's the giant coasters. I think we're gonna get something closer to the Phoenix Rising that just opened up over at Busch Gardens, or over at Dollywood. I believe it's called the Firefly or whatever it is, where it's kind of the 2-seaters and definitely a little less tame. However, I'm gonna assume there's gonna be a lot of theming. Could be an indoor attraction, kind of like Guardians, but obviously themed towards Monsters Inc. But this is super exciting, and I think they said we are possibly getting another ride in there as well, probably a kid ride. I don't know all of the details to it. Where it's going is the big question mark right now. There is a lot of debate that it seems like it's gonna be replacing the Muppets area. We don't know yet, but it would kind of make sense. But I feel like they've really started to invest in the Muppets a little bit more. I feel like they've redone Muppet Vision 3D a few times. I feel like they really utilize them for certain events over at Epcot and certain things. So I don't know if they're getting rid of Muppets. I mean, it's still gonna be able to be used, but at the end of the day, I mean, what ultimately will they do with that Muppets area totally to kind of revamp it? I don't know. But either way, super excited that we are getting a Monsters Inc. land. Now, again, I think this is huge news. In all honesty, I feel like we're getting another land. Obviously, Tropical Americas is technically another land. Again, kind of rethemed, and I think Monsters Inc. will be as well from what I'm seeing. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to continue to expand per se, or again, if they're going to be retheming an area. But either way, this is huge because we're getting a first, which means that we're getting a first suspended roller coaster for the Disney parks. I mean, that's big news. Let's be honest. We can't just be like, hey, yeah, whatever. I mean, that's awesome. The theme is really cool. People have been talking about this style of ride for a long time, where again, you are hanging on the doors or flying around. So super cool to see that. And then as well, we have the Smuggler's Run getting some new missions. And I think from what I heard, this was supposed to be the case originally. I think we were supposed to have different ways to interact with it, and different kind of voyages that you're going on here. And I think we're getting a Mandalorian and Grogu mission now that we'll be doing. So that is pretty cool nonetheless. I feel like that ride has kind of lost its popularity. Rise has definitely sustained that popularity level, where I do feel like Smuggler's Run has kind of teetered off quite a bit. And maybe this is a way to kind of get some people coming back. It's come do new missions, come do these new voyages or whatever. So that way it is a little different, because every time you go in there, you're just am I getting the pilot? Because if not, I don't really care about what we're doing. I've already seen this, 1,000 times. Let's switch it up. So It's cool that they're doing that. Again, the bigger thing here is definitely the Monsters Inc. land. Again, I think it's awesome, but again, we'll kind of recap it here in a minute, but those are the two big announcements coming out of Hollywood Studios. Now it is time to wrap up the announcements with Magic Kingdom. This was huge. I think we were expecting maybe something, and they really delivered here at the Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom already is, I feel like, the biggest park. Obviously, Animal Kingdom with the safari footprint, theirs is probably bigger. But as far as the number of attractions, just the grand size of like everything that you have inside of that area, I think Magic Kingdom is like well above the other three that they have. So it's crazy to think that we're expanding inside of the Magic Kingdom. I'll start with the kind of least important announcement, and that's going to be the new nighttime parade. Now, I say least, but a lot of people loved the old nighttime parade, and I do feel like it is a great idea to bring back a nighttime parade. It's just another reason to keep people in the park. By the time the fireworks are there, you're kind of in this weird limbo where like between early parades and then the fireworks, there's nothing really going on. And then the fireworks happen, and then you kind of have about an hour or two of the park being open, depending on if it closes at 10 or 11. So I do feel like with the nighttime parade, this is actually going to be a really good thing to bring to the park. It's another way to start to grab the crowds away from some of the rides. That's the big thing. You gotta imagine that park is probably the most popular park. I think when they looked at the actual data, Magic Kingdom was like the most popular park in the entire Orlando area. So that being said, now we can go ahead and imagine with all of these people, where do they go, between, 4 or 5, whenever the parade's going on, the normal parade, and then the fireworks show, but they're doing rides. Well, now all of a sudden, if you start to add in these nighttime parades, it's just another way that could ultimately decrease the crowd levels. And the reason I think they're doing that is because of these next two announcements. Now, first up, probably people's not really most anticipated, but that's gonna be the Cars Land. Now, this isn't a copy of Radiator Springs. They aren't just taking Disneyland and popping it down here in Orlando. It's apparently going to be an addition. We are kind of going beyond the Radiator Springs vibe. We're going almost on to the next chapter, it kind of seems. So I think when they do stuff like this, that means that they get to use their imagination. So it's kind of like Tiana's, where you're ultimately kind of just continuing the story on how Disney wants to kind of take that. So this, I think, with Cars now is going to be something where we're going kind of beyond the story now and letting Disney just kind of imagine what they want to put there. So this is going to be an entire new land with 2 attractions. One big attraction, which it kind of looks a little bit like the racing ride over at Disneyland, but it does look a little different. It looks like it's got more hills, more almost like out in like the kind of like dirt roads and things like that. It's not just kind of like on streets. I don't really know what the total vibe is going to be. I'm excited to see what kind of goes on with it. This is, I think, going right next to and kind of attaching to like Big Thunder and everything over there. So this is gonna be kind of that whole little section over in like Frontierland. I think they're reimagining like Frontierland as a whole, but we also just got like all of this stuff with Tiana's. So like, what's kind of going on there? It was like, well, this is gonna be like New Orleans, but now it's Frontierland. Is it Frontierland? I don't really know what all is going on over there. I'm excited nonetheless. Cars is also another film that I really liked. Didn't like love it like I did Monsters Inc., but I do think it's cool, and I'm excited that we're getting an entire new land. And again, this isn't a retheme land, this is a new land. So this is why I'm saying Magic Kingdom had like the biggest announcements out of all the parks, because we're getting a new land here. This isn't something that they're just kind of tearing down and putting back up. They are digging dirt, paving the way, and putting in something new. On top of having that new attraction, kind of the big attraction, they did mention that they're going to have like a kiddie ride in there. So something a little bit more for the kids. So I'm assuming it could be, anything like an alien swirling saucer, something a little bit more tame. However they do it, I don't really know. But we are getting a kids ride, and then we're getting kind of the bigger like e-ticket attraction, if you will. But now we're going into what was the biggest news drop, I think, of the entire night. And that is, we are getting a Villains Land at the Magic Kingdom. Now I know a lot of people, when they saw the concept art, they're like, this is blue sky through and through. This is not at all what it is going to look like, because there's nothing really set in stone in that image. I don't know how far along that process is coming. I do feel like every other announcement they made was pretty concrete. Villains Land, it is not blue sky to me. I feel like they are committed to doing it. I am just nervous that like we don't know anything coming to this land. I feel like they are definitely in a preparation phase. We'll talk all about like the comparison between, you know, Disney and Epic here in a minute here. I want to end with that, but I do want to point out a few really cool things that I liked with the Villains Land as I'm pulling the image up. There is 2 spots that I think look super cool, which leads me to believe we are getting something super serious in here. Number 1, the bottom of the screen. I feel like a lot of people overlook this. At the bottom of the screen, it looks like an attraction underneath the rubble. There is kind of this roller coaster, what looks to be kind of a 2-seater, and it looks like a stream, and it almost looks like there's tracks behind it. And again, this kind of looks like it's something that's like underneath this like mountain style. So I think we're getting a serious roller coaster in here. I don't totally know. A lot of people are looking kind of to the left of the image, and you can see kind of like this like viney, spiky looks that also looks like a roller coaster. And I do believe that probably is going to be a roller coaster. And I think it's kind of both. I think it's one roller coaster is what I'm going to assume, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing something over there into the left-hand side, and then something there at the bottom that they kind of snuck in there. The reason they put that there, in my opinion, is because they want you to know they are bringing a roller coaster. What kind? We don't know. Hoping it's a super cool thrill ride. Obviously, the last roller coaster, Tron obviously was their last, but if we look before that and we look at Guardians, that was something brand new. So what they are doing, I hope is gonna be kind of on that Guardians level where we get something completely new, or just like really blows our mind and it isn't just a copy pasted ride with a different retheme, but I am hoping we get something really sweet there. So that was, I think, the biggest shock is Villains Land. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, as much as you may like or dislike Disney, you have to appreciate that they are doing the Villains Land and that everything that they announced here at D23 is in the works. Very exciting stuff. Now, let's really talk about the reality of this and how it relates to Epic Universe. So obviously we got announcements of Epic Universe, and it was basically going to be built in about 3 years for like the consumer. So we kind of knew some stuff. They did like the big announcements, they announced a lot of stuff, and then it basically kind of feels like it took about 3 years, I think is about the timeline that we're looking at. So it's gonna open up next year. Now, a lot of people are really kind of like upset with some of the announcements as far as the dates go. So for example, I think when they announced the like version 3 of Test Track, they were saying like 2025 or 2025, maybe like summer 2025. They gave like a really rough estimate. And like, you have to understand, Epic did the same thing. Like Epic didn't give us a date. I don't even think we still have a date. So you have to understand when somebody says it's opening in a year, like, and I'm saying like a specific year in the future, that's them like not really having the exact timeline. So you have to understand that like the project management team probably has a set date that they want to get things done. So they may say, we want this open by August 15th, 2025. Well, as a project manager, you're gonna watch that shift. You're gonna say, oh, like we didn't get enough materials, so like this is delayed, that's not working, or we're ahead of schedule. So you're kind of covering your butt by basically stating just like a year, because assuming it's not the end of that year, you get yourself kind of quite a bit of leeway. So if all of a sudden you say summer 2025, and that's kind of like your safety net, if you open it early, people are really happy. Now, if you open it late, you're in trouble. So if Epic says we're opening in summer 2025 and they don't open till fall 2025, now everyone's upset with Epic. They're like, you said summer. So you've got to always be a little careful with the verbiage that you use. So I'm not faulting Disney in this regard when they say, you know, kind of vague things like opening in 2025 or summer of 25 or whatever it might be. So I just want to get that out of the way. I don't think any of that is a problem for me because again, Epic's been doing the same thing. It's been a pretty vague pretty much the entire time. And so, you know, that's just how it is when you have a new project like that. Now, when we really look at, is this enough though to compete with Epic Universe? I don't know. Really, I don't know. I would say at face value, probably not. But I am super excited for all of this, and you have to understand, like, it's kind of pseudo similar to the amount that Epic is opening. So Epic's opening a bunch of new lands, yes. However, we are getting kind of new lands at a lot of these parks minus Epcot, but we aren't necessarily getting like new lands as much as like rethemed lands. So we're getting kind of 4 new lands in a sense. So we get the Tropical Americas. We also have then Monsters Inc., Villains, and Cars. So it's 4 new lands that we're getting, where like over at Epic, you know, you have so many that you're getting, but they're full-blown new lands, right? So there is definitely a difference between opening like 5 versus 4, sure. And then obviously like the size, you know, things like that. So that is definitely something that, you know, I'm realizing, hey, Disney is opening this new stuff, but it's not gonna quite be at the same level, right? There seems to be a lot that is coming to these lands over at Epic. It's not just gonna be like one ride or whatever. I think they're really filling these lands up. Now, one big thing is we can't discount this from Disney, because people have been begging for a Villains Land. And a lot of people have come out and said, wow, this is a direct, you know, fight against Dark Universe over at Epic Universe. And while I do agree, and I'm honestly thinking Epic is going to have the better kind of like Villains Land with Dark Universe, I feel like people have been asking Disney to make a Villains Land for a very long time. So for them to deliver is something that I feel like you can't be like, well, they're only doing it because of Dark Universe, because again, people have been asking for it for a long time. Maybe now they're just kind of going forward with it because Dark Universe has opened and they're, you know, making those announcements. But I'm gonna guess that Disney knows a lot of information about Epic way before any of us know. So I wouldn't go out there and think like, oh, you know, they're only answering these things right now in the moment. I guarantee they've got a lot of this information behind closed doors. And, you know, so we're kind of just like the normal people like, oh, they're doing it because of this. I don't think that's the case. I think they've got a lot more information. So to kind of just piggyback off of that though, I would still say Epic on a grand scale, size of everything, I don't know if this is enough for Disney to kind of make that kind of, you know, jab over at Epic. One thing I want to point out though is we are kind of in this situation where Epic is coming in 2025. A lot of this construction from what I've seen is 2025, 2026 start dates. I did see, I think maybe a few of these things are also 2027 start dates maybe, or was that announced? But either way, we're looking at quite a long timeline. I'm gonna guess a lot of this stuff will open between 2027 and 2030, unfortunately. So we do have probably another 3 to 5 years, maybe 2.5 to 5 years before we start to see any of this stuff really pop up. I don't think we're getting this Villains Land, if I'm being completely honest, until 2029, 2030 would be my guess, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. I just think that one is probably gonna start construction in 26 or 27. I'm gonna guess it's gonna take a few years. I mean, we've seen kind of how they go, you know, their pace seems kind of slow. Maybe they start amping it up. One big thing too, I think as soon as like Disney is finally starting construction on all of this new stuff, I almost feel like Universal's already gonna be in the works to kind of expand Epic or to kind of build out a little bit more at Islands or Universal Studios. I don't know how much more they plan to bring to those two parks. I really hope that they don't just like leave them in the dust. Obviously, we have the Minions and DreamWorks stuff that is opened, but I'd really like for them to continue to build onto those parks just because, I mean, I don't know. I feel like you can't just like leave them and set it and forget it. I think we still need to kind of build on those, but my assumption is by like 25, 26, Universal is already kind of prepping what their next phase is. So I think between the two of them, again, now we're in a situation where Universal's made announcements, Disney's making announcements, and I think Disney knew that they wanted to wait to make all of these announcements until this year, because you have Epic opening next year. All of the hype has been built behind Epic. So I do think Disney is pretty smart here. They're saying, I mean, think about it. If a new iPhone comes out, what's everybody talking about? The new iPhone, right? If all of a sudden like a new MacBook or something, like basically my whole point is whatever the newest announcement is, that's what everybody talks about. So everybody's been talking about Epic for so long. Disney may have had all of this ready to go last year or 2 years ago, but they're like, we need to wait until Epic gets a little bit more traction going. And now that Epic has a ton of traction, Disney comes out and they say, hey, look at us, look what we're doing, right? Over here, over here. So now I think that is what's happening right now, is we're seeing Epic kind of taking the front, and then Disney comes in and they say, wait a minute, we have all of these announcements, get ready to come to our park next. So I think they know they're not gonna be able to compete with Epic. I don't think they want to in the first year. I just don't think it would make a lot of sense, because Epic is gonna be way bigger than anything Disney could even possibly do in that same amount of time, unless they randomly were like, hey, we were building a 5th gate this entire time, nobody knew it was happening, which I feel like people would see, and then randomly surprise us like, hey, it's opening next year. It's not happening again, but that's how I think they would have been able to do something crazy like that. But at this point, I think they're like, we're gonna just have to let Epic run for a year or two and kind of like let that newness wear off, though I don't think it's going to for a while. But I do think like that hype over the first year will start to kind of like level out, because everybody's gonna wanna be there right away. And then right as soon as that starts to, teeter off a little bit, then Disney strikes and they say, hey, we've got all this new stuff. We got a new Villains Land. We've got, Monsters Inc. land. Maybe they announce a 5th gate at some point. But I think that's their plan right now. I think they are letting Epic take a year or two to just really go hard. And then Disney wants to swoop in. And then what we're hoping is Universal comes back with some more answers, more expansions to Epic Universe, more expansions to Islands, or whatever it might be, another water park. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think right now, we're battling, and the biggest thing to me at the end of the day is that we are full blown back in the theme park wars here in Central Florida, and I am all for it. This is what we were living for in the 90s and early 2000s. Disney comes out swinging, Universal comes and swings, and it is a brawl and it is bloody, and you're like, let's go. Because as the consumer, that means we get so many more attractions and we get more stuff to do. So this is great news. Even if you don't like Disney, this is great news, because this means that now Epic and basically Universal as a whole is gonna wanna answer back at some point. Obviously Epic is still, it's definitely beyond what they announced. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It is still way bigger than what they announced, but this is a lot right now that Disney announced for just Orlando, which is something we needed. We needed new stuff here, and we are getting it in the next few years. So I'm hoping again, Universal now will come back, in a few years, they're gonna make their announcements, and then again, Disney will come back. And I think we are back to that kind of like 2-year period where we are gonna start battling between the parks. And again, this is like the best time to be going to the parks, because that means that we're going to be getting new stuff and the battle is on. And like I said, I am here for it. Hopefully we got to just have a fun little chat here. You guys got to figure out a little bit about what's going on. Again, my honest opinion, I don't think we are competing with Epic quite at that level, but this is still really, really big news. I don't know what D23 is gonna look like for like the next year or two with something like this. But again, they made a lot of announcements yesterday outside of just Orlando. So I think with all of the announcements, I think it's more than Epic. Obviously, they got 4 new boats coming to their Disney Cruise Line. They're opening new things at their overseas parks. I know they're getting more stuff over at Disneyland. So they have a lot of money kind of just going out to the parks. But I do think Orlando was one of the biggest beneficiaries of D23. So again, that was super awesome to see, and I'm very, very excited to hopefully see all this stuff kind of like come to fruition. But again, not supposed to be blue sky. This is supposed to be legit stuff. So either way, hopefully you guys had some fun with me here today, and let's hope to see more of these theme park wars, and let's get more attractions, more things to do. Let's lower the prices if we can, because that's the best thing that we could do for the normal consumer. Either way, if you did have fun with me here today, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, anything Disney, Universal, anything like that, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next one. Take care.